Hello and welcome to the Beyond 6 Seconds podcast. I'm your host, Carolyn Keel. And today I'm very happy to have my guest, Nichelle Walker. Nichelle has worked primarily in the sales and technology fields throughout her career, which includes more than 20 years of experience in the public sector. She's a passionate community service advocate who sees it as a way to find local solutions to national or global problems. Nichelle encourages people to take social responsibility for doing things that matter within their local communities. Nichelle, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Carolyn. I really appreciate it. I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, so happy to have you here today. So, you've been passionate about community service really throughout your life, and I believe it started pretty early for you. So, tell me a little bit about where that passion comes from.
Well, that passion comes from a couple of different places. I am an Army brat, so I had a childhood that was kind of a village, meaning I got raised by my aunt sometimes I got raised by my other aunts, mostly all up and down the East Coast and in Germany. And my parents kind of instill that in me through their service in the military. And, it would be holidays and Christmas or something. And just think we're all in Germany and you all miss your family. So they would all come over and we feed their whole battalion and everybody would come and we'd just be a place that would actually help the community. Sometimes we go out and serve the community. And then living with my aunt, which is my dad's sister, for a short time, she kind of really put that in me to kind of start like around Martin Luther King's Day. That's a day of service for our family. We kind of start, we do it together. And then as we go throughout Black History Month, we make sure that we do service that matters and that would affect the areas that we want to see a change in. So my aunt kind of had a little bit to do with that, my dad, and of course my mom. She just was really big on that as well and giving back. And of course, I'm a woman of faith. So in my church community, I also serve for community service. And I've been doing that as a kid all throughout my life. And I find community service to be a really good way to give back to the community and to affect change in the areas of diversity, equality, and inclusion through my service that I do. And I try to do it intentionally to affect the change that I want to see.
Mhm. Wonderful. So, you mentioned a couple of areas around diversity, inclusion, equality, and equity that you focus on. How do you kind of select the opportunities that you feel will have the most impact in society?
Well, that's a great question. What I do to affect the change is I kind of try to handle it at an area and before it starts. So my area that I really want to affect is the area of domestic violence. I am a survivor of domestic violence. And so when I serve to affect change in that area, I would start with serving maybe a younger population so that they have that esteem, they know what a good relationship looks like, and they can kind of adopt those keys to their life. Like all the stuff I wish somebody had have, maybe told me when I was younger, and maybe I could have avoided that situation. But now I try to serve in ways that get to that situation. And then as well, for the people that are going through that situation still currently in their life, I try to encourage them. Verizon has a really, really great program that we're doing for volunteering
Mhm.
and being able to give back. We want to do 2.5 hours or 2.5 million
Mhm.
hours as a company by 2025. And I feel like I can lead in doing that. So, what I've been doing is writing letters to some of the domestic violence survivors. And that includes men, women, children, and all of that, just encouraging them, letting them know that I have personally walked in their shoes and that there is a way to get to the other side and just a few little things that they can do and some resources and places that I was able to take comfort in and talk and find those resources that I needed to kind of bring it back. So I help in that area in the during, and then there's the after part. Now this part normally comes kind of like me, like I'm a survivor of domestic violence. This part kind of is for either the family of or the person that's gone through and they're now on the other side, because you feel a need to want to give back to the way or the way that other people gave to you.
Yeah.
And so those are the people that I kind of say, hey, I see you've got something and you've made it past this. How about trying to serve in a way that you can give back to others? And they're like, what does that look like? And then I describe the program because there's Built by Girls. That's what I do the mentorship through. And then there is a wonderful shelter that I found in New Orleans through an event that we did through Verizon to help others, the volunteer service. And I've become really acclimated with them. And sometimes if I don't have the time, I might even go on and just purchase toiletries that the women or the children need. Sometimes diapers, sometimes toothbrushes, sometimes sanitary napkins. It just really depends on the need of the person. And I can send that off, but I'm still doing something even though I may not have the time to mentor somebody.
Mhm.
So, I pick it off and I do it in that way so that I'm kind of getting it from all the sides and I'm really affecting change. So I'm doing more with the little time that I may have and, doing it purposefully. And I think that community service can be done in that way, no matter what your cause are or, your heartthrob, that thing that you want to go after, and whether it's animals, whether it's climate control. I mean, there's so many things that you can do. And 2020 taught me to do things virtually and kind of, gave me a couple lemons and I had to make some lemonade and learn how to do all of that from right here in my house where
Mhm.
you're seeing me now. So, community service is a great avenue to affect change.
Yeah. And it sounds like you really approach it from a lot of different angles, as you were describing, sort of before, during, and after. And you mentioned Built by Girls. I'm
Mhm.
really interested in that. I've had the opportunity to volunteer with that organization, but I was very interested to hear you describe it as sort of a way to give back and, in some way support people around the issue or challenges around domestic violence. Can you tell a little bit about what that organization is and how it kind of ties together with all of that?
Well, Built by Girls is an organization that will partner a young girl and they're the mentee, and then I would be the mentor, the person that works in technology or that works in corporate. And what you do is you kind of show them a day and what kind of like the day looks like to you, your day-to-day activities, things that you're doing, some of the people that you might talk to, some of the clients, and kind of like what your job is like and what it really looks like. Not just, how you read a job post and it gives you all that technical stuff. It's that chance to really get in there and to really show the girls what it looks like. And then it gives them a chance to ask you questions about your job. It gives them a chance to ask you how you got there. Why did you get there? Did you fail before you got there? And to have those honest conversations because that's what they're trying to figure out. And if you can be honest with them and talk to them and tell them about your experiences, even though their experiences may not be the same, it really is a big resource to the girls. And they get a chance to talk to you and to know you and even network with you. And then there's 3 sessions, and on that last session, they ask you to do some introductions. So, because I work with you on the next call that I have, because I'm just getting to a new cycle now, and I haven't met with her yet. But at the end of that cycle, she's just looking to find another woman or a person that is actually in that field and that has some stuff that, maybe she can dig in and ask about. And it's really good in that sense that you can do that. Now, on my sessions, I had to make it a little extra. I have a fourth session, and I invite all of the girls that I've mentored back together, and they get to meet each other. They get to become LinkedIn contacts, and then I give them a certificate because I feel like it was an accomplishment to actually go through a successful mentor session. And once they actually get through that cycle, they get that from me. And so, it's just a really I think a good thing, but I didn't realize how much I would learn from the girls. I thought that only I had something to share, but
Mhm.
they've imparted a lot on things on me. They've kind of made me a little more passionate about what I do and a little more intentional about the service that I'm giving and in the way that I serve too. So,
Yeah.
it's kind of like a give and a get at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah, and really building that community. And you're right, it's having, you're not just sort of checking the box and saying, "Oh, I met X number of
Right.
times with somebody and I fulfilled my obligation." But it's really building, as you said, being intentional, building that community and, just being an example who is present in the lives of these young girls. And I'd imagine that can open up worlds to them, just that
And
type
it,
of
it
mentorship.
really has. And I've made some really great relationships with them too. But the thing that I like is the networking aspect too that the young girls get in meeting someone else. I don't know. I don't think I honestly in my career started really networking intentionally until about 2019, the end of that year, because, as a woman of color, I wasn't, not to say welcoming, but just open to telling everybody, who I am and kind of putting my brand out there. I wasn't as confident in that. And as I've grown, I've become really confident in my brand and the things that, I stand for as they've started to all balance out and come together, which has just been a really, really good thing for me. And yeah.
Great. Fantastic. So you had mentioned that you had experienced domestic violence and that a lot of the community service that you give is around supporting and prevention and just, helping to uplift that community. What kind of support did you receive during your experience that you found to be just so incredibly helpful to getting you out of that situation?
Wow. Well, that would be a lot of different things. I think that I was very blessed in that situation and that I was able to have a lot of resources, meaning people actually gave me materials, know how, and I got some counseling at the same time because that is a time where you need to rebuild and to be able to uplift and to be encouraged by others in who you are and who you're becoming and who you're changing your life to want to be because it's a whole life change. It's living your life differently, intentionally, and taking time out for yourself. And it's also pouring into yourself and figuring out what is it that I'm doing right and what's healthy and what's not. Because domestic violence, I can't say why it happened to everyone else, but why it happened for me. I had low self-esteem, and during my time of growing up, I had my parents together. And then once I graduated from high school, kind of like the next day, they kind of went their separate ways. And that changed everything about how I looked at relationships and how I saw myself in a relationship. And it caused me to pick up a lot of unhealthy habits in relationships. So it took a lot to get back from that. I had to kind of learn how to communicate effectively. I had to learn how to have a real conversation, which means, you're talking to somebody. Maybe you talk 50% of the time and they talk 50% of the time. And when they're actually talking, try listening so that, when it is your turn to talk, you have something to say. But all of that was unhealthy for me. So it really took a village of people during that time of, going through my divorce because I was married and this happened in my first marriage. I decided to also go back to college.
Wow.
So, I mean, I got resources there too because I had to figure out what to do with my life at that point when it wasn't working. And at that point, I wasn't a wife anymore and I had to figure out what I wanted to do. So I went to school and I got my degree in English education with a licensure to teach.
Mhm.
But throughout that, I actually had to invest some of that time into pouring into me and kind of developing healthy habits.
Mhm.
And so once that kind of started and I started on my way and I kind of got comfortable with those things, I then kind of felt like it is a time to serve and to give back. And I first only started by maybe donating to, wish list and picking organizations that I wanted to donate to. And then I think as I got stronger, I was able to talk to some of the women and tell them my story, which they can connect with because their story might be somewhat similar or it might not be, but at least they know that we have that same hurt and they had the ears to hear me then and sometimes to make changes and sometimes to step back and make changes because it is that type of process when you are helping.
Yeah, and that's powerful. It sounds like there were, as you said, you had a lot of different resources and that you had support from others in your community to help with that transition. And I think it's important.
Exactly that. And support is very, very important and for others to be able to have those resources and find those resources and to be able to use them as well. Sometimes that's the encouraging part that you have to do is say, this is the right way, this is what you want to do. But this is what you did. Now, how do we get back there? Because sometimes it's actually really talking to them and
Yeah.
getting down to the nitty gritty. And then for that part, I went and got my life coach certification because I needed a bit more and I needed a way of being able to talk to the women and bringing them back to their cause, not what Nichelle would want them to do, but literally the check marks and the benchmarks that they've made for their life to
Yeah.
kind of stick to those to get better.
Yeah. And then to be able to do that and provide that support in a safe way for the person who's trying to leave the situation, because that's,
Absolutely.
I imagine that it can, depending on the situation, it can be, you know, very unsafe to extremely dangerous. It probably depends, but so how to apply that during that challenging time.
Right. And that's exactly that. And I think the resources that I was able to find for some of the women, shelters that are in their local areas, and then sometimes you'd have to find a resource in a shelter to find another shelter that's not posted anywhere just for those safety reasons, because you never know what that woman may be going through. And sometimes it's not a woman, sometimes it's a child.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's a young man that was part of a family and now he doesn't have a family anymore. And just different things, or, different situations.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's great that you're able to share your story with other people who have gone through domestic violence or are going through it at the time, so that it shows them an example of, you know, you were able to get out of that situation and really just, you know, change your own life and move forward. And that's really wonderful. Wow.
Thank
Thank you.
you. I
And
appreciate that.
yeah, absolutely. And it's such an important issue to be focused on, especially now because we're recording this it's February 2021. We've been in the throes of the pandemic for nearly a year now in the US,
Yes.
and a lot of people are stuck in situations that are not good, just bad, you know, family situations, and domestic violence. It can be, you know, I think I heard earlier it was on the rise, and it's it's frightening. It's really even more difficult and more important now probably than ever before to focus on this.
Yes. I definitely agree because I just couldn't imagine, you know, during the time that I went through it. It's completely a different situation. So imagine being, just somebody trying to survive life and trying to go through and then, this is happening in your home or even if it's not in your home, but where you are.
Yeah.
And there's really not an outlet. There's not a place to go. There's not a safe place that you could imagine, just immediately go to. You'd have to make plans and, there's all this precautions for COVID and, getting checked in and checked up, but you need a plan in the sense of an emergency. And sometimes that's the part of it that I do with women. Sometimes I make plans. Sometimes I'm that person that they call at 1, 2, 3 in the morning and they're just like, hey, talk to me. Right now I'm not feeling so well, or maybe this isn't where I want to be right now, or I don't know why I'm here. And those are the cases that I'm just really glad that somebody reached out to me for, and that I maybe can talk you off a ledge and just let you know that you matter and that you're important and that you're special. And sometimes that's what we need, even just during these times of COVID without the domestic violence
Yeah.
factor. You just need that moment where you're pouring into yourself and you're kind of getting grounded and you go back to your roots and you remember all of the reasons you're here doing this thing that you're doing in life, whatever mission it happens to be, whether it's work or whether it's service, just actually having that little anchor, pouring into yourself or a little beacon or something that grounds you. And I definitely suggest that for all people, especially during these times.
Oh yeah.
Stay connected.
Yeah, these times are challenging no matter what your situation is, and people may think that, oh, you know, this pandemic is going on, like there's no way I can make a change, there's nowhere for me to go, there are no resources. But it's great that you're there to kind of, you know, maybe it's different or more challenging than it would be out not in a pandemic, but at least you're there to kind of help people find what they need.
Thank you. I think we all have a part or something that we could be doing just for whatever it is that you might have a calling or a heartthrob for. And when I say that, we all have areas and things that we care about. So, maybe just do our part just a little bit to touch or to affect change in that area. And that looks different for anybody that wants to do service.
Yeah. And I know that's really one of the things that you believe very strongly in, is that you're an advocate of community service for
I
yourself, but
am.
you also encourage other people to make that difference in their community through community service. So, you know, sometimes I feel like just looking at everything going on in the world, it's like, where do I even start? Like, how can I, just one person, make an impact on these huge problems that we have in our society? So how do you encourage or suggest that people approach that problem and think about how to make their impact?
Well, that is a good question. The way that I've chosen to do that is I joined the Women's Association of Verizon Employees. For years now, I've been a member, and I used to just do, service or just, events or different things that I could be a part of. But then, I don't know, I felt like a calling to do more. So then I joined a committee, which was the Community Service and STEM Committee with Verizon. And then I don't know, that still wasn't enough. I wanted to do some more. So then I became the chair of the committee, or one of the chairs of the committee. And what I found is that WAVE was a wonderful organization of women that are serious about some service. And what I mean is, it actually excited me. I mean, they're really great at the service that they do, and I love the way that they do it. Meaning, I'm here and I'm in North Carolina, and through the events that we were able to do, I helped somebody in New Orleans. I didn't leave my home, and I was able to make a genuine connection with some of the people that I started writing. And sometimes we still write back and forth. Some of them have had meetings just to meet me and to kind of talk and to find out about some of the resources that I was able to find, and maybe to share some resources that they found in their area, so that I can kind of network and make a little, notebook for if I meet somebody that lives in that area. Maybe I could send them to that shelter, or maybe we could talk and do things there. But WAVE has just really opened up global community service for me. And I never thought that I could say that I can do community service on a global level.
Mm.
But then we had some people that are from our global WAVE, because I'm in the Southwest chapter, which covers most of the United States. But we were able to partner with some of our UKV teamers, and we were able to kind of help with, what is the activity? The activity was actually walking and saving on gas, and it was to help the environment. So for 1 week, when I walked to the Food Line, because it's right next door to me, and it's got a nice little deli and bakery and fresh foods place in there. But I mean, I actually got some extra exercise, and I was able to serve with them as well. And it just really helped. I didn't even know that we'd be able to do community service that would affect anything in the UK. And then they had another event where they were actually writing letters to the women. So people in the UK are now helping people in New Orleans, Louisiana. And that's what I love about WAVE, is that it opens up community service that can be done on a global level. So what I would say to anybody that's looking to get into service is to find an organization or a community that allows you to do that, and that will allow you to actually serve in the way that it's going to affect change in the area that you care about. So there are a lot of organizations. There are the American Heart Association, if you care about health. There are lots of women organizations. If you are an entrepreneur and you want to help other entrepreneurs, there are bootstrap organizations that will teach you all kinds of things about your business and how to teach that to others too. And they'll give you the materials to do that. So if you intentionally look for the area that's on your heart that you care about, you can't go wrong. Join an organization and they will help you get to serving.
Hey, fantastic. And WAVE, which you mentioned, is the Women's Association of Verizon Employees, just in case anyone
Yes.
wasn't familiar with that. But, of course, it sounds like if you work at a company that is also very active in social issues, or whether it's the environment or social justice or domestic violence, or any issues that you're close to, it sounds like a great way to not just be the one lone person trying to make a difference on your own, but to connect with other people who care about the same things that you do and make that impact together.
And I definitely agree with that. And I like that Verizon has that, but we have a lot of employee resource groups. And what I did in 2020 is, I think we were right at that point where we all kind of started working from home. So this had to be about March. When I got home, I felt alone, and I didn't feel like there were a lot of people around. So you know what I did? I joined all the employee resource groups
Mhm.
and that Verizon had, and I just went to things that I think gave me joy and spoke to me. And I met a lot of great people, and I found ways to be even more diverse. I joined PACE, which is the Pacific American, or what is it, PAC. I can't exactly remember what that stands for,
Hmm.
but it's really cool. But I learned a lot about Asian American history. And then I learned a lot about their culture and where they come from. And I learned about the Lunar New Year and all of that. And then last year we did a virtual boat race, which is something that they do all the time. And they were telling us about what it meant and the culture and what it symbolized and all of that. But we did it virtually because we couldn't actually, go and, be near each other because of COVID. So we were able to do our community service hours to propel our boats forward. And that was just really good in the sense that I learned about another culture too, but I also got a chance to serve and compete. And we won. And that was a good way of me, learning about a whole nother culture, serving with people that I didn't exactly know. But after, the contest, I think we were almost family because we talked a lot, we rooted each other on, and we were able to connect in that way through our service. And some of us still talk now, and that was last year. So, I mean, it's awesome in just, going out there, seeing what's out there, and actually connecting and being intentional so that you can serve that
Hmm.
community and find those organizations.
Right. That's great. There's still a lot of opportunities to connect, even if it looks different in this current reality that we're in, where we're digital and we're physically distanced from each other, but still there's other opportunities to really build those relationships.
There is, and I agree with that. And since you're saying that, I think in 2020, I really became mid year really focused on just being intentional. So when I have a meeting with somebody, I try not to be distracted and I try to give them my full intention and be intentional about that and getting to know them and them getting to know me, meaning being more impactful when I actually have that connection, just because I don't have that many. And it's been really going well. I've been able to make a lot of contacts and, network a lot and really meet people and do collaborative projects with them on different things, whether it is, life coaching or development or bootstrapping your business, which is what I'm kind of doing as well as bootstrapping my business.
Mhm.
And 2020 put a, little wrench in that in certain areas. So it caused me to grow and it caused me to stretch and to learn more things that I can use for my business and help other people with their business. Like I've learned how to build a full website just in self-development
Mhm.
because the person that was building my website when I was rebranding, they caught COVID. And, you have to kind of go and move with, they're okay. I will say that they're okay and they're healing. But it caused me to stretch and me to grow and me to learn how to do something for my business that would make me happy about my business.
Wow. Yeah, so tell me more about the business and the brand that you've been building.
Well, my brand is about, I would just say, pretty much almost service in what I do and who I am and what I bring to my business. But I do photography and I love what I do. I take pictures that kind of tell a story of a person. I do a lot of rebrand shoots for people that are branding or wanting to have a headshot or wanting to take branding photos and things of that sort. And I've also added a component, which I didn't think I'd be able to add in 2020, of being able to have mentorship in that, meaning there's some young women and some young boys that have also wanted to learn photography as well that are younger. And maybe they have access to a camera and maybe they don't, but I've been teaching them to use what they have and how to monetize on what they have to get into the business and to build those things. And that was a really cool component that I was able to add in 2020. And I didn't think I'd be able to do that. Had to find a way to be safe and way to do temperature checks and, send out contracts beforehand and, ask all the COVID safe questions for them and my mentee at the same time and make sure everybody was being safe so that we could go ahead and, still do business, which has been, a challenge, but it's still happening. And I was able to kind of get over those humps and learn information and have new skills that I could also offer in my business too.
Wow. That is really cool. Like a really interesting combination of, photography and just helping to, because photography really kind of helps people to step into their own brand and sort of share, how they want to be displayed to the world. And, sometimes it's hard to do that on your own. So it's great to have someone who kind of knows what to look for and how to bring that out of a person. And I think mentorship really fits in well with that too.
I think so too. And I like that they all kind of float together, even though they're different. But I mean, it still speaks to, how I want to run my business and the things that I stand by and the components that are involved in those things too.
Yeah. So have you had some clients or some people that you've worked with this, I guess, past year, 2020, even though things have been kind of challenging for businesses, but have you kind of been able to work with people and help them get their photography and their brands off the ground?
I really have, and I've worked with more people than what I thought that I would in that situation because I kind of came from an aspect of, oh no, what I do is in person. How do I make this work for me? It took me to, have that online presence to want one. And then now that I have one, it's also kind of giving me those aspects of the things that I want to change about the brand too, but that I want to bring into the brand. But not only that, how do I be safe at the same time? So it caused me to think about all of those aspects and to build something that works and that checks all those boxes so that I'm able to still maintain the business. But the mentor aspect is something that I didn't even see myself being able to do.
Mhm.
And so I actually had a young person say, hey, can I follow along? Can I just come to the shoot? Can I see what it is that you do? And I never thought that somebody would want to do that. But then I was like, why not? Because, I do believe in giving back and to, giving service or being a resource at least, And that was one of the best things that I think that I did because of the aspect that I got. My first client is one of the young ladies that I go to church with. And she was phenomenal. She came in and she learned how to take pictures very quickly and was very helpful with the client. She did so well. The client was so proud of her that the client literally asked me, how can I pay her? How can I leave her a tip? How can I sew into this to her life? Because she was phenomenal.
Mhm.
And then it was like, and it kind of all went off. And I wanted to make sure I could get her to come back and to learn more things and to do
Mhm.
more things. And now, pretty soon, who knows? Jada's thinking about opening up her own business and seeing a resource that wasn't there for her before in a way that maybe she can get through college by doing photography on her own time. And I never even thought that was possible, but I felt like I was there and it just happened. And I don't even know if I had much to do with it, but I was just grateful for the opportunity that I could be there to be a resource to her in that way.
Yeah. And that's an incredible impact, beyond just you as the one person, but the fact that you can help somebody, basically help somebody build a skill that allows them to support themselves is just incredible. And what an amazing impact.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But I'm sure she's going to be impacted in something a little differently than I was. I mean, I've still got, stuff back there and loans and all that. But I just wanted her to have an avenue and a resource that she could use and have in that time that would not create debt.
Mhm. And with your business, do you mainly work with clients who are young people, or is it really kind of any particular client?
Well, it's really any particular client. I always try to come and find out exactly what it is you're looking to do and to create a story from that. Because it's not about my story and what I want to show, it's about giving you what you're looking to show and how you want to be viewed by the world. Because, it's a picture, but I still want it to tell a story, and I'm sure you do too. So, I mean, I worked really hard on making sure that that story comes out and in that way, and that I'm effectively giving you what you want and I'm representing your brand in the best way that speaks to you and who you are.
Yeah. Well, that's really outstanding. And yeah, I think it's wonderful that you were able to continue to grow your business. And, as I think all of us were learning and adjusting and shifting things over the past year, 2020. And I think it sounds like you're, again, extending the impact that you can have with that service, as you said, which is outstanding.
And
Wonderful.
I agree.
Wonderful. So, yeah, I mean, I know you're still kind of in the process as we're recording this now, in the process of building that brand, and that you'll continue to grow it and build it. So how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about the work you're doing with your new company or just any other parts of your story?
Well, they can find me at nichellewalker.myportfolio.com, and they can get in touch with me there. They can make an appointment with me there, and they can also look at my portfolio there for some of the photos that I've already taken and some of the clients that I've already worked with. And then soon they'll be able to see an updated of that site as well, which I'm working on in the background. As I was talking to you about before, learning how to build my own website and let it be something that I'm excited about. I do like my brand, but I'm definitely upgrading my brand with the new tools that I've been able to add.
Awesome. So I'll put the link to your website in the show notes so that people can click on it easily and go and see all of your great work. So
Thank you.
awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nichelle. As we close out, is there anything else that you'd like our listeners to know, or anything else that they can do to help or support you?
Well, what I would say to the listeners is that I'm very passionate about the service that I do. And I like to kind of bring it back to the service because my mission is to kind of help people help themselves and then give back to help others. And I think that's what service is all about. So if you could just find one thing that you're connected to, one thing that you care about, and do one intentional service this year, just one, if you have never done something, I think that's going to help the world and it's going to make things better. It's going to change for a better. The more people that do service, just in the areas that they care about. So that's what I'd leave them with is that, you can, well, it was a quote by Martin Luther King about change. I can't remember the quote exactly about Martin Luther King, but he talks about doing service and that is the fact. And that's the thing that you can actually be great at, and that it doesn't take a college degree, and it doesn't take you to be real smart or even super savvy or very technical. You can serve and you can give back. So, I'd just like to leave the listeners with that.
Right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Nichelle, for being on my show today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.